right, this is intermediate algebra, section 1.3. If you're following along in your intermediate algebra book, it starts on page 30. And we're going to talk about writing the equation of a line. The first thing we see when we look on there is a new formula called the point slope formula. The point slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And using this formula allows us to write the equation of a line as long as we know the slope, which will go here, and one point that may or may not be the y-intercept. And those coordinates for that point, the x-coordinate will go here, and the y-coordinate will go here. So starting with example 1, the question asks us to find the equation of a line that has a slope of 2 and goes through the points through the point -1, 7. So like I said before, to use the point slope formula, you need two things. You need a slope and a point. And as long as we have a slope and a point, we can fit it into this formula, and this is how we do it. We start with y, coming from here. Then we subtract the y coordinate from our point. So we're going to subtract 7. So y minus 7 equals, this m stands for slope, so we'll put the slope in, 2 times, then we'll do x minus x1, which is the x coordinate. So x1 is the x coordinate, y1 is the y coordinate. So this will be x minus -1. Oops, not 11. There we go. All right, so the first thing we notice is these two, you know what? That was a parentheses. These two negatives, which we can of course change to positive, and that should be the first thing you do when you have those negatives. So we'll rewrite this now as y minus 7 equals 2 times x plus 1. You should always simplify these signs before you start to distribute, because that's going to be the next step. If you distribute with these negative signs in here, you're going to get this sign wrong just about every time. So now we're going to distribute, and we're going to have y minus 7 equals 2x plus 2. That comes from distributing this 2. And then, of course, we're writing our equation in slope-intercept form, so we want to isolate this y, so we're going to add this 7 on. That 7 gets combined with this 2 because these are like terms. We end up with y equals 2x plus 9. And this is your final equation. This is the equation of the line that has a slope of 2, and you can see the slope right there. This is in y equals mx plus b, so this is the slope. Goes through this point. Now, these two coordinates are no place in the equation. That's why we use this point slope formula to use these coordinates, but this is the equation of that line. All right, example 2 is a similar question. Example 2 is on page 31, and it says find the equation of a line that has a slope of -2/7. So this time our slope is -2/7 and runs through the point 4, 9. And we're going to use that point slope formula again. So I'm going to write it out for us. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, and so remembering what we're going to do, this y1 and this x1 are these coordinates. So the y coordinate will go here, the x coordinate will go here, m is the slope, and that will go here. So when we put it all in there, it's going to say y minus 9 equals negative 2/7 x minus 4. And now the next step is to distribute. And I know fractions are not your favorite thing, but you got to learn to work with them. Y minus 9, when we distribute negative 2/7 times x, of course, it's just negative 2/7 x. And then when we distribute this negative times this negative, we'll get a positive here. And I'm going to take this off to the side. And this is the only time I'm going to do this for you guys. 2/7 times 4 over 1. Top times top, bottom times bottom makes 8/7. So this will be 8/7 here. All right, so that was distributing the 2/7. I'm going to say this right now, and I'll probably say it many times during the course of our class together. If you don't know how to work with fractions, you need to get some basic review. Ask me about it, or you can even search my YouTube channel if that's where you are. I have some basic fraction review videos there. All right. The next step here is to isolate this y. So we need to add 9 to both sides. So we're going to add 9. And these are the like terms here. So we're going to end up with y equals negative 2/7 x. When you add 8/7 and 9, you have 9 and 8/7. But in an equation, we want to write this as a mixed, as an improper fraction, not a mixed number. So we're going to turn this improper, and we're going to put it down here. 7 times 9 is 63, plus 8 is 71. So this becomes positive 71, oops, not 9, over 7. And this is our final equation. All right, example 3 is similar. It says find the equation of the line that passes through these 2 points. Okay, so this time instead of having 1 point and a slope, I have 2 points. Now, I said before, a little earlier, to write the equation of a line, you have to have a slope and at least 1 point. If you don't have a slope, and instead you have these 2 points, we're going to go back to what we learned before, that slope formula, and we're going to find the slope. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And of course this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 minus y1 will be 8 minus 2 over 4 minus 1. That's 6 over 3, or 2. So our slope is 2. And we're going to fit that into that point slope formula, which I'm going to write again. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, it doesn't matter which one of these points you want to use for x1 and y1. You're going to get the same answer no matter which one you use. I usually choose to use the one that has smaller numbers or the least amount of negatives, because negatives always complicate things with this minus. So, but you can use either one, okay? This is the slope, so this is going to be m, and I'm going to use the point 1, 2 for x1 and y1. 1 will be x1, 2 will be y1. So when I get that substituted in, I end up with y minus 2 equals 2 times x minus 1. Distribute, and we have y minus 2 equals 2x minus 2. Add this 2 to isolate the y, and we end up with y equals 2x, because those cancel. All right, example 4, which is at the top of page 32 if you're trying to follow along, says find the equation of line that passes through the points -1, 2, and 4, 5. And this is exactly like the last example where we don't have a slope, but we have 2 points. So the first thing we're going to need to do is find the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Don't forget, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 minus y1 will be 5 minus 2, x2 minus x1, and we've got these double negatives again. So you can change this to positive, and this slope comes out to be 3 over 5, which is a nice fraction for us. Now, when we get ready to use our point slope formula, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, you're going to use this 3/5 for slope, but you can use either one of these points for x1 and y1. Again, this one has higher numbers, this one has the double negative. Your book uses this one, so I think I'm going to probably go ahead and do that too, just so that if you're following along with your book. So that's going to come out to be y minus 5 equals 3/5 times x minus 4. You're going to distribute this 3/5, and once again that comes out to be y minus 5 equals 3/5 x minus, okay, 3/5 times 4 is 12/5. If you need some clarification on that, you can go see the fraction videos. The next step is to add this 5. Okay, and those are like terms. So this is where it actually starts to get a little more complicated, because these are different signs. So you're not really adding them, you're going to subtract them. We're going to end up with y equals 3/5 x. To subtract these, they need a common denominator. So I'm just going to take this over here. This is a negative 12/5 plus 5 in fifths is the same as 25/5. So you can see that I wrote this wrong. This should be a 5. You can see that 25/5 is larger than 12/5, so this is going to come out to be a positive here after I subtract it. And 25 minus 12 is 13, so this turns out to be 13/5 coming from here. This is 13/5. Okay? All right, let's look at the next example. Example 5, which is at the bottom of that same page. It says, find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that contains the points -3, -2, and is parallel to the equation y equals -7x plus 2. Okay, so before we said if we're going to write the equation of a line, we have to have 2 things. We have to have a slope and we have to have a point. Well, we've got our point right there. These are clues to help us find the slope. If we're writing a new equation that's parallel to this equation, and I don't know if you remember this from the last lesson, parallel lines have the same slope. So we're going to look here to find a slope, and then we'll apply that to our new line. Since this is in y equals mx plus b, our slope-intercept form, you can see the slope right here is -7. So we're going to apply that slope to our new line, and we're going to use the point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The slope is going to go here. That would be -7. This will be x1 and y1 here. So that's going to come out to be y minus -2 equals -7 times x minus -3. Got a lot of negative signs going on there that we need to simplify first. So this is going to be y plus 2 here. This is going to be -7 times x plus 3. Now distribute. You have y plus 2 equals negative 7x minus 21. Your last step is to isolate this y. So subtract the 2. No fractions this time. So y equals negative 7x minus 23. All right, example 6 is on page 33. Same type of question. Find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that contains the point 4, 5 and is parallel to the equation x plus 5y equals 20. All right, so to write the equation of a line, we have to have a slope and a point. We have our point, and these are our clues to find a slope. Again, remember that parallel lines have the same slope. So we're going to take the slope we find from this line, we're going to apply it to our new line. However, this is not in slope intercept form. So we need to put it in y equals mx plus b by isolating this y. First step, put x to the other side. So that's going to be 5y equals negative x plus 20, and then divide by 5. So y equals negative 1/5 x plus 4. Now don't forget, this is not 5x. There's an invisible 1 here. That's why this turns into 1/5. And then we can see the slope here is negative 1/5, and that's the slope we're going to apply to our new line. So now we have a slope and we have a point. So we're going to use that point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we're going to have y minus 5 equals m, negative 1/5, times x minus 4. All right, now to distribute, again, we're going to distribute this negative 1/5, and we'll have y minus 5 equals negative 1/5 x, and this will be a plus because you have a negative times a negative, and 1/5 times 4 is 4/5. And then the last step is to add this 5 to isolate y, and these are like terms here. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit so we have a little bit more room here. So we have y equals negative 1/5 x. Over here, 4/5 plus 5. Since they're the same sign, you can just write this as 5 and 4/5 and then change it to an improper fraction, which is 29 over 5. Real quick, to change a mixed number to an improper fraction, multiply denominator times whole number. 5 times 5 is 25. Add the 4, you get 29. Keep the same denominator. So this is your final equation here. All right, example 7, which is on page 34, says find the equation of the line that contains the point negative 3, 4, and is perpendicular. So not parallel this time, perpendicular. And I'm just going to use the abbreviation perp for perpendicular to x plus 3y equals 20. All right, again, to write the equation of a line, you have to have a slope and a point. We have our point and we have clues for slope. So if you remember, lines that are perpendicular have negative or opposite reciprocal slopes. So we got to find a slope here, turn it to its opposite reciprocal, and that will be the slope of our new line. So again, solve for y to find the slope here. So 3y equals negative x plus 20, divide by 3. So y equals negative 1/3 x plus 20 over 3. If you're freaking out about this fraction here right now, don't worry. We don't need that fraction. We're not doing anything with this b over here. We're looking for this slope. This slope is negative 1/3, the slope of this line. Our new line is going to be perpendicular, so it doesn't have the same slope. It has the opposite reciprocal slope. So our new slope is going to be the opposite sign. So since this one's negative, our new slope will be positive, and the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So the slope of our new line will be 3. And then we're going to use that point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and we're going to put the slope of 3 in here and this point x1 and y1 in here. So that will be y minus 4 equals 3 times x minus negative 3. And do not forget to simplify these before you start doing any distribute. So y minus 4 is 3 times x plus 3. Now that turns into y minus 4 equals 3x plus 9. And then we add this 4. We scroll up a little bit. We get y equals 3x plus 13. And this is your final equation. All right, example 8 is on page 35. It says find the equation of the line that contains the point 1, 2 and is perpendicular to the equation or line y equals negative 7x plus 2. All right, to write the equation of a line, we have to have a slope and a point. These are clues for slope. Our new line is going to be perpendicular to this line. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Now this is in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, so we can see the slope of this line is negative 7, but that is not going to be the slope of our new line. The slope of our new line has the opposite sign. Since they are perpendicular, this one's negative, our new one will be positive. And they're reciprocals. The reciprocal of 7 is 1/7. So the slope of our new line is going to be 1/7. The point slope formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That means when we substitute that stuff in, y minus 2 equals 1/7 x minus 1. And we're going to distribute. Y minus 2 equals 1/7 x minus 1/7. Just in case I lost you there, 1/7 times 1 is 1/7. And now we're going to add this 2. And of course, this is the tricky part for most of you guys watching this video. So this is going to be y equals 1/7 x. All right, to add these, you got to make this 2 into a common denominator of 7. So I'm going to write it over here. This is a negative 1/7 plus 14 over 7. That's what 2 is equal to. Obviously 14 over 7 is bigger than 1/7, so this is going to be a plus sign here, and this comes out to be 13 over 7. All of this comes out to be a positive 13 over 7. So this is your final equation here. All right, I'm actually going to stop here because I feel like this is a good place to stop this video so it doesn't get too long. There are 4 word problems at the end of this section that I'll do on the second part of this video.